Hey, good morning, guys. We are going to pick back up in chapter 20 of 1 Samuel, where we left off together yesterday. And where we left off was Jonathan had just, no kidding, realized that his father Saul uh, was a madman, and that his intentions were to kill David, and even we saw that Saul tried to kill his own son Jonathan. And in verse 33, where we left off, it said, Then Saul cast his spear at him to kill him, by which Jonathan knew that it was determined by his father to kill David. So this is where we are. Jonathan now is recognizing what's going on with his dad, and also remember that what we had read together with David had been left in this field, and so David was in this field, and they had set up this communication, kind of a code, kind of a code word scenario where Jonathan was going to come out in the field after he had the new moon feast with his father and guest, and he was going to shoot arrows in the field. And if he said to the person fetching the arrows, "Hey, go beyond," then that would mean that things aren't good. And then if he said, uh, forgetting here, let's see. So if things were good, go find the arrows. If I express it that, look, the arrows are on the side of you. So if he says, look, the arrows are on the side of you, everything's fine. If Jonathan says to the gentleman looking for the arrows, look, the arrows are beyond you, then things aren't good. So Jonathan runs out in verse 34 here. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had treated him shamefully. Looks like a day fast here, and he's so grieved he's not eating. He's grieving for David. And so it was in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a little lad was with him. Then he said to his lad, Now run, find the arrows which I shoot. As the lad ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. When the lad had come to the place where the arrow was which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan cried out after the lad and said, Is not the arrow beyond you? So, essentially saying, David, things aren't okay. Indeed, my dad is out to kill you. And Jonathan cried out, Make haste, hurry, do not delay. So Jonathan's lad gathered up the arrows and came back to his master. But the lad did not know anything. Only Jonathan and David knew of the matter. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to his lad and said to him, Go, carry them to the city. As soon as the lad had gone, David arose from a place toward the south, fell on his face to the ground, and bowed down 3 times. And they kissed one another, and they wept together, but David more so. Then Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, May the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. So he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. So don't just overlook this. Sometimes, we all, when we're reading scripture, we may just read right through, but do whatever it takes to really meditate on it and really just try to picture it. And we weren't there, we didn't see it, but I mean, there's when it says that David wept more so, in this bowing down on the ground 3 times. I can't. I don't know if there's a significance to the number 3. I'm not even. Was it just 3 times because about that time Jonathan had met up with him and they were hugging and weeping together. But nonetheless, it's good to prayerfully meditate on this kind of stuff because David's crushed. I'm thinking of I don't know. I mean, just scenes in movies or even real scenes that I've seen. When someone gets bad news, maybe a child is severely hurt or worse, even dead or some bad accident, and just that overwhelming of emotion where you're just dropping on your knees and it's just just crying out in anguish. And I believe that that's exactly what's going on here with David. I mean, he's crushed. David, up to this point, one of the things I mentioned yesterday was this almost this boyishness to him of, hey, what did I do? What's going on? He's responding as he goes along. I mean, he's been alone for years out as a shepherd boy, under the stars, hanging out with God, and just stepping into this. Now he's been anointed to be the king, and rather than sitting on a throne, this is what's going on. He's being chased by the current king of Israel, and he can't even exist with his own people. And so here he is on the run in just this deep anguish. So jumping into chapter 21. Now David came to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid when he met David and said to him, "Why are you alone, and no one is with you?" Ahimelech would know of David, right? And so here's this area of Nob. David's fleeing. He's come to this priest, and the priest is wondering, "Why are you alone? What's going on? Why don't you have some men surrounding you? I mean, you've been at war with the Philistines. You're the guy who took out Goliath, and you come to me, and you're all by yourself. And what's going on here?" And so David said to Ahimelech the priest, "The king has ordered me on some business, and said to me, 'Do not let anyone know anything about the business on which I send you or what I have commanded you.'" Lie. He's just straight up lying. And David's not perfect. And that's one of the cool things about the Bible. When you really start reading it, the Bible's not holding back. It's not holding back on the very men who are seeking God and who are following God and who are called by God. These guys are human. They make mistakes. And in this time, I mean, we really can only imagine what David's going through. But he's on the run. He's probably a bit in survival mode. And in survival mode, our flesh, just our own thinking, our own plans, that Bible term flesh, our flesh is just roaring. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna take this into our own hands and get it done. So we walk that on a daily basis. Even now, and even David and all the people in the Bible, same way. We're all walking that spectrum of flesh and spirit. And our daily prayer, if it's not, should be to pray for a freshness of spirit, to ask the Lord um, with that indwelling spirit inside of us, to bring it on us fresh, that we may live in the Spirit, that we may walk in the Spirit, that our life will exhibit fruits of the Spirit, right? And that list of the fruits of the Spirit, I believe it's in Galatians in the New Testament. We get that list. But right now, David's evidently in the flesh, in survival mode, on the run, and he's straight up lying to the priest. And he says, "Do not let anyone know anything about the business on which I send you or what I have commanded you. And I have directed my young men to such and such a place. Now therefore, what have you on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand, or whatever can be found." He's hungry. He's wanting some food. Hey, can I have some food? And the priest answered David and said, "There is no common bread on hand, but there is holy bread. If the young men who are with you have at least kept themselves from women." Then David answered the priest and said to him, "Truly women have been kept from us about 3 days since I came out. And the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in effect common, even though it was consecrated in the vessel this day." Um, so let me read this. "So the priest gave him holy bread, for there was no bread there, but the showbread, which had been taken from before the Lord, in order to put hot bread in its place on the day when it was taken away." A few things here. One is that the bread that's being given is coming from the holy place, right? So in our previous studies, looking at the tabernacle, you've got the tabernacle tent, you've got lampstand, you've got a table for the showbread out in the holy place, the altar for sacrificing, and then you have the most holy place, which is only entered into once a year. Well, this table of showbread, which is where this bread had been taken, what they would do is on a weekly basis, on this day of Sabbath, they would change out the bread. So there would be 12 loaves of bread on this showbread table to correspond with the 12 tribes of Israel, and so weekly this would be changed out. And so here he is with these 12 breads, and so the fact that it did come from the holy place, it's important that these men are clean, not unclean. And so, and even some of the things that we saw, what does the cleanness mean? One, you haven't been with a woman, you haven't had sexual relations, you haven't been around a carcass or, dead things of that sort. So the priest is checking in with David, to check on this. And also, in Matthew chapter 12, verses 3 and 4, Jesus, proved this. He referenced this account here of what's taking place, and and he approved this unlawful use of showbread, and really presumably because there's already sin in Israel. There's already sin in Israel, and David is really the representation of righteousness. So again, even though he's human, even though he has faults, even though he started off this whole interaction with a lie, David still is representing righteousness here. This is still a man after God's own heart. Moving through, fleeing, on the run, hungry, give me some bread. And so if also if David had had his rightful place on the throne, then he wouldn't be here begging for bread. And the law, which forbade the profane use of the bread, was not intended to forbid a work of mercy such as this. David's in need right now, and he doesn't, needs this work of mercy, and that's exactly what he's receiving. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chief of the herdsmen who belonged to Saul. And David said to Ahimelech, "Is there not here on hand a spear or a sword? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste." Still lying. Still just continuing this story and this lie. And Shakespeare's quote here says, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." He started off with deception. He's continuing in the deception. And continuing in this whole facade of the king's business. And when we both know, when we all know here that the king's business is to kill him, that's the truth of the matter. So the priest said, "The sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, there it is, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you will take that, take it, for there is no other except that one here." And David said, "There is none like it. Give it to me." So a couple things here. One, this Doeg guy, this Edomite, says that he was detained before the Lord, and he was the chief of the herdsmen who belonged to Saul. So here's one of Saul's guys. And so being detained before the Lord, what that would indicate here is that Doeg, this Edomite, had converted to the Hebrew religion. So he would have converted, and so just this detaining, then he was being detained potentially by some vow, whether that vow is to uncleanness or some other ceremonial requirement. And and then the other is the sword of Goliath, ending that section there, said, "And David said, there is none like it, give it to me." Now, there was a time period, remember, when David was in the valley and he fought Goliath with mere stones in the name of the Lord, completely depending on God, no armor, just a sling and a stone. And now here he is, "Hey man, I've got to have a weapon. I've got to have a weapon." And then he's seeing Goliath's sword and he takes it. So now he's, depending of sorts, on this sword. And then David flees to Gath. Then David arose and fled that day from before Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. And the servants of Achish said to him, "Is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing of him to one another in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Now David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath." Progress report. Gath, these are the Philistines. So, and not only the Philistines, but specifically this city of Gath, this is where Goliath was from. And here's David, an Israelite, the king of the Israelites, and he's literally, banging on the doors, wanting to take refuge in a Philistine city, and the city of Goliath, the very man he had beheaded. And then they're asking, wait a minute, isn't this David? And so David, taking this to heart, says he changed his behavior before them, pretended madness in their hands, scratched on the doors of the gate, and let his saliva fall down on his beard. Then Achish said to his servants, "Look, you see the man is insane. Why have you brought him to me? Have I need of a madman? Have I need of madmen that you have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house?" Okay, guys, 10 seconds here. David's not in a good place, and we'll pick back up tomorrow with a couple of Psalms that are inserted here. Till then, God bless you, and have a great day.